Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. I should have thought of this. We could have put Dasi's picture on the front page. Because she's not Bhakti Rasa, she's Bhakti Rasa Dasi. Devi Dasi. But Bhakti Rasa. What is Bhakti Rasa? So today, earlier, we heard about Bhakti being an expansion of Ladini Shakti. And Ladini Shakti is an aspect of Krishna's Swarup Shakti, or his own personal potency. So, very confidential, intimate connection between Srimati Radharani and Bhakti. So Radharani is Ladini Shakti of the personality of Godhead, and Bhakti Devi is her expansion. I'll say it again. Bhakti Devi is an expansion of Radharani. And then, what is Bhakti Rasa? Well, this is kind of an introduction to what's going to be the topic for tomorrow evening. So many of the terms and concepts that you hear today will be expanded or developed, modified for tomorrow. And that is the relationship of Dasya, or being the eternal servant of the Supreme Lord. Dasya Rasa. So Bhakti. Dasya being one of the primary rasas. So here's a very simple definition. When a devotee, upon hearing of Krishna, like Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, or a drama about Krishna, or of Krishna, or a deity form of Krishna, something that's directly Krishna, by sound or by deity form, or remembering him. So we're quite accustomed to hearing pastimes of Krishna, and it may also be some personal realization or something that happened in your life, or someone you know, or someone dear to you, in relation to Krishna, remembering Krishna in some event. Now, when that happens, when that Bhakti Rasa touches someone, they experience something. And when that experience of that something, that's Bhakti Rasa. And so some kind of, it may be, a glimmer or a moment or something, may be extended, but something that's very unique, distinct from a material experience. The magical bliss of bhakti towards Krishna. And that's Bhakti Rasa. A simple definition. And Krishna is at the center because he's Raso Vaisaha, as many of you know the verse, or reference to this verse from Taittiriya Upanishad. Of course, there's a longer version. This is a abbreviated version. Raso Vaisaha. He is Rasa, himself. Raso Vaisaha. Rasam hyevayam labdhavandi bhavati. He is rasa, the taste or mellow of a particular relationship. A comment. I struggle a little bit with the Chinese devotees because they're accustomed to hearing rasa dance, and they don't make a distinction between rasa and rasa. So I have to correct them like 20, 30, 40, 50 times. Rasa. Eventually some get it, the translators. But rasa is different than rasa. That rasa is a taste. Or mellow. Prabhupada would sometimes use that word, mellow. Of a particular relationship. And certainly one who achieves this rasa becomes anandi. Labdhavanandi. Labdhavanandi. They're filled with labdha, that they obtain, they become filled with rasa, bliss, anandi. So that's Krishna in relation to us. You got a front row seat. Look at that. I've got a question. What's going to happen with the next person that comes in? Where are they going to sit? Okay. So some of you recognize this verse, the third verse of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1, text number 3, right in the verse, composed by Vyasadeva himself. Bhagavatam Rasam Alayam. Let's say the verse. Many of us know the verse. Nigama kalpataro gaditam palam idam chumbamukad amritam dravya samyutam pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam muhur aho rasika bhuvi bhavuka. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Shukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. So one of the reasons for putting this verse right towards the very beginning is the Bhagavatam is itself rasa, because Krishna is himself rasa, and the Bhagavatam and Krishna are not different. The sound vibration form of and the personal form of, they're non-different. And as Krishna is rasa, then Bhagavatam is rasa. And from the first line, Nigama Kalpataror Galitam Palam. So it's very relishable. Sukha Mukhad Amrita Dravya Samyuta Pibata Bhagavatam Rasam Alayam. Just topics in relation to the message of what is rasa, or what is bhakti rasa. Prabhupada, in his preface, English, it's not just a translation, it's his English of Nectar of Devotion. Adoption of bhakti rasa, or Krishna consciousness, will immediately bring one to an auspicious life, free from anxieties, and will bless one with transcendental existence, thus minimizing the value of liberation. So we know these four, Purushartha, right? Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, Krishna consciousness, or Bhakti Rasa. It's beyond liberation from material existence. Bhakti Rasa itself is sufficient to produce a feeling of liberation because it attracts the attention of the Supreme Lord Krishna. Now we heard that these topics are in fact sequential. So we heard in the midday class at the temple that bhakti is an expansion of the Lord's Hladini Shakti, his intrinsic potency. And this bhakti that expands from his internal potency is qualitatively like the internal potency. Or Bhakti Devi is an expansion of Radharani. So this bhakti gives bhakti rasa. And it's so, Krishna enjoys increased happiness by experiencing his own bhakti within his bhakta and the loving exchange between them. So his happiness increases. That's we heard. But the living entity then also experiences this special feeling between himself or herself and the personality of Godhead, Krishna. And the attention of Krishna is attracted by Bhakti Rasa, and the living entity is also attracted by Bhakti Rasa. Okay, now comes a little primer, like ABC, elementary discussion on the topic of Bhakti Rasa. And Bhakti Rasa is resting upon this Sthai Bhava. There's a very nice way to describe Sthai Bhava. There's different ways. One of them is a wheel, on just say your automobile. There's wheels that turn, and then there's an axle. The axle doesn't turn, but the wheels turn on the axle if the car is moving. And that Sthai Bhava is compared to that axle. Understanding Bhakti Rasa has to be built systematically. The Sthai Bhava. Sthai, permanent or stable ecstasy. Bhava or rati, pure transcendental experience. So these terms, bhava and rati, technically, or within the Acharya's compositions, they're often used interchangeably. And it's a particular mood of bhakti, a particularly pleasurable mood of bhakti, and an ecstatic mood of bhakti. And when that ecstatic mood of bhakti is experienced, and the experiential level, it softens the heart. And in that softened condition of heart, there's this loving exchange. So rasa is a two-way street. That's the simple way. There's something from Krishna's side to the bhakta, and there's something from the bhakta to Krishna's side. I'm sure you remember, I certainly remember, the little sankalpa exercise that we did. You remember? Yeah. So, George Harrison and his sankalpa, in the form of a song, but it's what's inside is something subtle, directed towards the object. And, in one sense, he was out of step with the rest, the other three of his team. But, he had it from the very, 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 very beginning. Early. And he couldn't find the right place to repose it, but once he found the devotees, it just took off. And in his life, in his family life, in his music life, in his music itself. So the heart having a desire to meet the Lord, serve the Lord, exchange love with Krishna. So that's steady ecstasy. Commonly in nectar devotion, it's translated like that: steady ecstasy, Sthai Bhava. And that's the the axle upon which things start to move. But it's there, and it's steady. When this kind of bhava, supposing you don't know what your constitutional relationship with Krishna is, supposing you don't know. Jiver Swarupaya Nitya Krishna Das. We're all servants of Krishna. Without exception. We're all servants of Krishna. We're living entities, and we have that. So, deep inside, so it may need to be some excavation or some uncovering or some awakening, but it's there. And when it becomes to some degree awakened or moved or stimulated, then it doesn't leave because it's sthāyi bhava. And the presence, its presence is always in the consciousness of the devotee. That's sthāyi bhava. And then a certain mood towards Krishna, specific towards a particular relationship with Krishna, starts to evolve or take shape or form. And it's always there, but just it's awakening of that condition. And that relationship has these four primary dasya, sakya, vatsalya, madhurya. We're all very familiar with these four. Not included is shanta. Although it's a rasa, it's not a relationship because it's shanta, it's neutrality. There in this painting on the right, there's the different rasas. Of course, there's the conjugal rasa at the very top, parental rasa, the relationship of the cows, etc., towards Krishna, and those who want to be in a relationship of just being his servant, that's there. Now, it's always there. And it's possible, it's ideal for the practices of bhakti, sadhana bhakti, to awaken an awareness in us of what that is. And since it's already there, there's a natural inclination towards one of these four. And it's some indication in our present lifetime or a previous lifetime, previous experiences in a previous lifetime, the natural inclination is there. Nourished by, so these are things that we can do to help stimulate or further awaken, starting with Shravanam Kirtanam. And this vindication, this is Rupa Goswami's teachings, but same as we heard this nice description from Patanjali of what abhyasa or practice is for a prolonged period of time. Just like we just did, the japa retreat. We were more attentive or less attentive or whatever we were. But when there's attentive and it's sustained for a long time, then it helps to nourish the natural inclination, the sthāyi bhava that's there within. In case you didn't know what we were doing, that's what we're doing. And kirtana, there's technical terms. Okay, let's see what happens. By extended, let's say, reading or participating in kirtan or just participating in, it depends upon the degree of absorption in japa, but extended thoughts of Krishna that may, if they're purified, they sustain and they mature and they develop. Like, very advanced devotees, they can immerse themselves in japa, and in the course of japa, then they start to experience their relationship with Krishna, or the appearance of a particular pastime in their heart or in their mind in relation to Krishna. And that there's a display of that pastime. And they're the observer of the pastime that's being enacted within their mind. Just as the sound of vibration, when one is attentive in a very careful way over some period of time. I mean, this is a very advanced Vaishnava practice. But a nice example of this is in Brihat Bhagavatamrita. Anyone here not at all familiar with Brihat Bhagavatamrita? I need a little background. Okay. You know who Sanatana Goswami is? Yes? Yeah. So Sanatana Goswami is the author. And in one way of describing Brihat Bhagavatamrita, it's a commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam by Sanatana Goswami. Very creative. And it has two parts. And one of those two parts is part 2. And in part 2, it's a sequel to part 1. And in part 2, the narration begins with a young boy, a cowherd boy in Vrindavan. And his name in the Brihat Bhagavatamrita is Gopa Kumar. Gopa, cowherd boy. Gopi and Gopa, cowherd boy. Gopa Kumar, young. Kumar age, very young boy. In his life in Vrindavan, he came across one Brahmana who he became very attracted to and wanted to take shelter of this Brahmana. And he requested the Brahmana to give him mantra. So the Brahmana gave him mantra. But as he was giving him the mantra, he went into a swoon of ecstasy and lost contact with the external world. So he didn't explain about the mantra other than giving the mantra. And then Gopakumar now he has this mantra, and he has mantra guru, and he understood inherently or intuitively that he's to chant the mantra regularly. So he began regularly chanting the mantra. And from chanting the mantra, he had experiences of higher consciousness and higher realms, and one of those higher realms that he went to was beyond heaven. I mean, there's a description he went to heaven. So the question that I shared yesterday, being a young boy growing up in a Christian family and wondering what's it like in heaven, it's right there in Brihat Bhagavatamrita. Gopakumar goes to heaven, Swarga, and describes what it's like there. How do people live? What do they do? And then from Swarga, he goes on to Maharloka, Janaloka, then finally Tapaloka, and describes those places. And in Tapaloka, the people in Tapaloka, they're celibates, brahmacharis only in Tapaloka, and they're engaged in dhyan. And they meet, Gopakumar meets them, but they don't have conversation because they're absorbed in meditation. And after they complete their meditation, then they notice, hey, look at this little boy here. And they have conversation, and there's some discussion of the conversation. And they say to Gopakumar, what are you doing chanting this mantra? Here, why don't you just join us? Because we don't have to go looking for, the personality of this mantra. We experience him through our meditation. And they give him an explanation of how they do their meditation. They invite him to do dhyan instead of mantra. And in that meditation, that they through meditation, they can perceive the form of the Lord, which is a little bit what's being described here. When deeply immersed, it's not only form of the Lord, but pastimes of the Lord and the activities of the Lord, the qualities of the Lord, the qualities of Krishna. Deep absorption in Krishna thought through Shravanam Kirtanam. And Sneha Samyukta Nama Japa, or Bhajatam Priti Purvakam. We know that phrase. Tadami Buddhi Yogam Tam Yena Mamupiyanti Te from Bhagavad Gita. The banner across the top is, how does Sthai Bhava emerge from it's there but not revealed to us, and then by what's the sadhana for it to become revealed to us, our particular Sthai Bhava. Because it's not at the rasa level yet. It's just, the steady ecstasy, inclination to serve Krishna in a particular way. So how it moves from Sthai Bhava to Bhakti Rasa in this way. Rupa Goswami gives a nice analogy. Everyone understands eating, so it's a really practical analogy. Over here on the left side, there's yogurt, or dahi. And if you add to yogurt, that's Sthai Bhava, you add to yogurt some other ingredients, what's being called here embellishments, some salt and pepper, mint, mustard, ghee, etc. And when you put them all together, that's Bhakti Rasa, or Rasala, technically too in the cooking. And it's raita, but with spices or embellishments. So the base is Sthai Bhava, and then it add things to it and becomes rasa. Pretty easy to understand, right? And you're only how old? 4? 5? 10? 7. Do you know how to cook yet? No? There's a cooking lesson. Yeah, you know how to make yogurt? Yes? No? Kind of. No. Okay. Milk with a souring agent, like lemon. Lemon is sour. You put a little bit of lemon in warm milk or hot milk, and it curdles. And you can, from that, you can make yogurt. So, embellishments. What are the embellishments? As in this metaphor of cooking, so there's different bhavas that are embellishments. And there's 4 in number. It's a little technical, but the topic is, what is Bhakti Rasa? What is it? So it's Sthai Bhava mixed with some embellishments. And stimulants, voluntary reactions, involuntary reactions, and emotions that arise from the mixing of those things with the Sthai Bhava. We'll go through the names again. When mixed with Sthai Bhava, the embellishments transform Sthai Bhava in the heart of the devotee into a very blissful and unique experience of bhakti in the heart, or bhakti rasa. Now, is this important? That sounds like too technical. Especially, I skipped purposely the names of the four rasas because you can just get confused, makes your head spin. And what's the purpose of all of this? A very simple way to understand the purpose of all of this is this. Supposing you attend a concert and you happen to be skilled in music. Supposing you're not skilled in music and you attend a concert, the experience is going to be different. So here's a picture of a concert. A person trained in music, they can relish far more deeply. That's the purpose. Relish or experience rasa by understanding how rasa mixes with sthayibhava. And then there are different flavors and different experiences that the viewer or the listener or the hearer or the rememberer, Krishna Katha takes on a whole other experience for you simply by understanding. Here's a little example. It's different, but it's similar. This is something I didn't have much association with Jamuna, but little. The occasion of a little was 2 times, but one time was there was a devotee named Purusha Sukta, disciple of Bhakti Tirtha Swami, and he had this bright idea of having a japa retreat for senior devotees. He was like Bhakti Tirtha Swami, kind of an out-of-the-box kind of young American fellow, and he had this bright idea. So we had in the mountains somewhere in California. I don't remember where it was, but I went because it sounded like a nice thing. And Jamuna was there, and I had heard her name, and I had seen images of her, certainly heard her voice. She was a celebrity, and there she was attending this japa retreat. So one day during we had lunch at a picnic table outside and somewhere up in the mountains of California, and she introduced herself. Mind if I sit here? And my name is Jamuna, and what's your name? And Enchante, getting to know. And then immediately her thoughts went to Krishna, to Prabhupada. And then I asked her. She started, and I just scratched the surface a little bit. And she had so many Prabhupada stories to tell. One of the Prabhupada stories she told was Prabhupada had trained her because she was at that time famous for her Jamuna cookbook. And so I asked, how did you learn your cooking? And she said, Prabhupada taught me. And then she told this little story. One time Prabhupada asked for a particular, I don't even remember the name of it, a particular kind of rice. And you from India, you probably know. Ladies will probably know. A short grain, very fine rice. It had a certain name. Something rice. So Prabhupada asked her, see if you can find some. In the world. So she found some of the rice that he wanted. And Prabhupada took one grain, uncooked, placed it on his tongue, tasted it, and told her what type of rice it was, the name of this particular rice, just from the taste. See, so that's the connection. Someone that's refined, just by one grain on the tip of his tongue, and he tasted it, he knew what kind of rice it was. Similarly, the idea of learning about these 4 embellishments of sthayibhava, what's the purpose of it? It can be something that's simply academic, and it could start and stop at just like something academic. But it could be, for the purpose is, so that when hearing pastimes of Krishna, or reading Krishna book, or hearing writings of the Goswamis or something, then something is stimulated. A taste in Krishna Bhakti or Bhakti Rasa is awakened by understanding the refinements of these embellishments, and more salt or more ginger or more ghee or more, little less of this, a little more. There's a different taste. That's the purpose for the audience that's hearing Krishna Katha or Bhagavad Katha or Bhagavad Dharma to have subjectively a different experience of ecstatic love between Krishna and his devotee, and between Krishna and you. The same as the topic from today. Krishna extends bhakti to certain devotees who are very fortunate to receive that bhakti. He does through the agency of someone, but he's the source. And then Krishna enjoys, and then the devotee may also enjoy, or will also enjoy. That's the purpose. So in case you forget the purpose, remember the purpose, why we're doing all this. And it will help us find our eternal relationship with Krishna. Understanding the finer aspects of the relationship between Krishna and his dear devotees could help us identify our own inclination of sambandha or relationship with Krishna, which we can further refine by more attentive and absorbed hearing of Krishna Katha. I hope it's clear, because we're going to start going through these embellishments, or the different, this bhava and that bhava, sthai bhava, vyabhachari bhava, etc. So here's of the four. Here's the first of the four, vibhava. Vibhava can be understood as one of the causes for the emergence of rasa. Now there's subcategories, two primary subcategories, alambana and udipana. Now this may, if those of you that have been around these terminologies, it's not new. But for somebody who's new, get used to it, because it's standard terminology. It's not, super esoteric terminology. It's standard terminology. Alambana and udipana. Those are two types of vibhavas. And the alambana is the personalities, plural, involved in the emergence of rasa. So Krishna and his devotees. And then there's everything else that nourishes the emergence of rasa, udipana. Udipana is sometimes called a stimulation of ecstatic love. So, Krishna's flute. And there's many descriptions of Krishna and Krishna engaging with his flute, and how the sound of the flute affects different personalities. So for example, the cows, when they hear Krishna's flute, their ears stand on end and they become motionless, because they're experiencing something from something that's not Krishna directly or Krishna's devotee, but from Krishna or of Krishna. Or Krishna's, the animal kingdom entities that mix with Krishna, birds, cows and calves, the abode of Krishna, or the river Yamuna. So we're used to hearing about these things, but we may not be thinking how this may have and can have, is meant to have, a stimulation of our own personal ecstatic love for Krishna, or how it's observing how it's affecting others who have love for Krishna. or are participating in festival days, like, coming up soon, Lord Nityananda's appearance day, or etc., etc., etc. So it's anticipating. Of course, there's the decoration of the temple and the decoration of the deity in the temple, and then there's the katha connected to the pastime of Lord Nityananda's appearance and the activities of Lord Nityananda with Lord Chaitanya, and all of those things are in this category of udipana. It's not directly necessarily the personalities involved in rasa, but it's paraphernalia connected with the pastimes, the dham. So there's two. Alambana and udipana. They're both in this first of the four categories, vibhavas. Now, where is this all going? That's one of the ingredients, and you put some amount of this, and then you move on, some amount of that, and some amount of the other, and you mix them nicely, and you get a certain rasa, bhakti rasa. And then same base, the dahi, and then some other embellishments, and you get another. Krishna is at the center. The sthai bhava of each living entity is what it is. It's steady ecstasy. Uh-oh. Sorry about that. We're halfway through. Anubhavas. It's a nice term. Anubhavas are voluntary external actions that express from the heart something that's going on in your heart or in one's heart, an emotion that's churning within one's heart, and then a voluntary behavior like dancing or singing or breathing heavily or smiling, or other symptoms. 14 symptoms are found in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Nectar Devotion. Now, normally we're not drooling and rolling on the ground, but those are external, voluntary, underlined the word voluntary, and external. It's something subtle that's going on inside, but it's manifest outside. That's two. So vibhava and anubhavas and sattvika bhavas. That's involuntary transformations. When the heart becomes overwhelmed by emotions in relation to Krishna. Paralysis, perspiration, hair standing on end, choking of the voice, trembling, changing color. We read about these things in Nectar Devotion, and they're symptoms, involuntary external symptoms. Like you have I think I'd like the hairs on my arm to stand up, please. But that's not how it happens. When one is feeling a certain internal subtle emotion, some transformation like that may take place. Tears in the eyes. There's a nice story. There's a nice pastime of Prabhupada. I heard this from Devamrita Maharaj personally because he was in the room when it happened. And Prabhupada was on the Vyasasana in Atlanta, and as he was speaking, tears shot from his eyes like a squirt gun. This is the involuntary, and people got splashed from the tears that were squirting from his eyes. He didn't put on a show or something like that. I want to show off how I'm an advanced Vaishnav. It was just happening in the course of his life as an acharya. And I can't remember the context, but it was something in relation to Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda. And as Prabhupada was describing, his voice didn't choke and falter, but his eyes just like a squirt gun, like a syringe, it says in Nectar Devotion. Involuntary. Satvika bhavas. And vyavachari bhavas. Voluntary or involuntary, internal or external actions or transformations in or by a devotee, but it provides a distinct contrast to the sthāyi bhava. And although it's contrasting, it nourishes it in a very sweet way. For example, some strong emotion, self-disgust. So we find those kinds of expressions in the writings of our acharyas. I'm this and that and the other thing. Like Krishnadas Kaviraj. Lower than a worm and stool. I mean, that's self-deprecation. It's just an ecstasy. In contrast with who he really is. The sthāyi bhava of who he really is. Thinking oneself unqualified, epilepsy, sickness, fear, joy, fault-finding, sleeping. Like the gopis would fault-find, the left-wing gopis would fault-find the right-wing gopis. They're not fault-finders. They're exhibiting ecstasies. And they derive ecstasy in that behavior. But there's one thing that stays the same. Krishna's at the center. Their love for Krishna is at the very center. And it enhances and brings a certain flavor to that loving relationship with Krishna. They don't literally, like a materialistic person, feel animosity towards another gopi or towards another entity. Or, like, what a fool is this Lord Brahma. He makes the eyes that blink. Because for that blink of an eye, I can't see Krishna. What a terrible creator he was. Doesn't he know how to build bodies that don't blink? So they're deprecating him or fault-finding him, but it's an ecstasy. So there's, as you see, the number is 33, and there's a long list in Nectar Devotion of these 33, and gives examples of these 33 so that we can go through them one by one. So how does sthāyi bhava move or transition to bhakti rasa? It's when these embellishments nourish it. And one of the mediums for embellishments to nourish it is hearing. From the right source, from a pure devotee who explains Krishna Katha in a deeply blissful way. Now, Prabhupada didn't go out of his way to have music in the background and enhance his narration. He just because of his purity, he didn't require that. Doesn't mean that people that do that are lesser, but he didn't require that. And an example that's given here is Gopal Champu. What's Gopal Champu? Who wants to volunteer? Someone in our audience. What is it? What's Gopal Champu? Huh? The contents of 10th canto. That's your answer. Okay. Anyone else want to? That's correct. Anything further? Gopal Champu? Yes, authored by Jiva Goswami. And what is it? Pastimes in Braja that are not covered in the Bhagavatam. Not in the detail. And what about outside of Vrindavan? You're not sure? Okay. Paramakruna, why don't you educate us on what is Gopal Champu? Not simple, not nothing elaborate. Yeah. Yes. The thread is the same. Yeah. So it's a, yeah. It's just some appreciation of Jiva Goswami. He not only wrote Gopal Champu, but he wrote a book on how to write a champu. Because it's a particular type of literature. Like Sandarbha is a particular type of literature. But with Gopal Champu, he wrote first what is a champu and how do you compose, what are the ingredients. Similar to what Rupa Goswami is doing here. What are the ingredients of Rasa or Bhakti Rasa? What are some of those 4 categories, embellishments, and 33 varieties of one of them, with details and details. Like, Juna's cookbook. I mean, it's not the same, but it's similar to details and details and details and details and details and details. For people that really want to have refined cooking, the details and details. And where did she learn? From Prabhupada. And she also took some training from some other very skilled, Prabhupada recommended, so she studied under certain very skilled persons that knew the science of cooking. And then she wrote the cookbook and how to make different rasas, or different tastes of cooking. It's like, that particular 1 grain of a particular type of rice, and Prabhupada knew. Anyway. So, hearing from Srimad Bhagavatam or other related literatures, like Gopal Champu, etc., and it's a method by which Sthai Bhava is nourished, and it reveals Bhakti Rasa, or seeing or experiencing Krishna. For example, seeing or experiencing Krishna in a drama. When that drama particularly is composed by a person knowledgeable in rasa. Now, even, just a personal experience. Once upon a time, I was a new devotee. In fact, I hadn't even become yet a new devotee. And I was a senior in my undergraduate study, and I was visiting Boston for the purpose of examining potential graduate schools, because lots of nice schools in Boston. So when I went there, it's a little detail. I stayed in a place. I went with 2 other people. There were 3 of us. They had some friends. The friends put us up in a loft. Loft means it's like big empty space in Boston. And I was in a back room, little room in the back. And on the windowsill, the little room in the back, was Jagannath deities, the little tiny Jagannath deities. And I knew who they were because of the place where I had gone to school. So I took it as a sign. I should go to the temple. I was planning. I did anyway. That's what happened. I didn't have that plan before I got there. Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. So I went to the temple, and I didn't know, but it was Nrsimha Chaturdasi. And the kirtan was amazing. The devotees were in a festive mood. So it was one of those stimulations of ecstatic love. And I didn't know that it was Nrsimha Chaturdasi, and they had a drama. And in the drama, Lord Nrsimhadev was Murlidhar Prabhu. Murlidhar Prabhu was one of the 3 main artists. Then it was not the BBT or the art department, it was just ISKCON Press. And Muralidhar was one of the three artists. The system was the artists had the privilege, as soon as Prabhupada they were making paintings for Krishna book. So Prabhupada would send micro cassettes, and they were the first ones to hear it. They sit around, the three of them, and listen. And then from that listening, they collectively, all three of them, decided what paintings would depict this particular chapter of Krishna book. And the one who made the initial drawing was Bharadraj. And then the initial drawing, kind of line drawing kind of thing, with the actions and the people, the personalities, and it would go to Janarani, and she would fill it in. And then Muralidhar would come along and did all the fine work, the jewels and the crown and the this and that and the eyes and, the refined final touches. And Muralidhar was really tall. And as I'm speaking, I'm picturing his face. He had these really thick eyebrows, and he was an intense looking person, but he was very soft, very quiet, very gentle. But he was impressive looking person. And I didn't know, but he was hiding behind a curtain in the temple room. So, the curtain went right down to the floor, so you couldn't see him. He was behind the curtain. And when Hiranyakashipu wanted to kill, Prahlad, and Prahlad, where are you getting your power? I'm getting my power from the same place you're getting your power from, my dear demoniac father. Where is he? Is he in this pillar? He's everywhere. So he took his sword and slashed with his sword. It was a little cardboard sword, and slashed the curtain. And Muralidhar came out from behind the curtain. Big body. I got too excited. Hurry. Just set it down. Thank you. Just set it down. Arms up in the air. He didn't even need, fake fingernails. He just roar, and the audience went, whoa. And he was in this angry mood, and he grabbed Lord Nrsimhadev and threw him across his lap because he had a chair to sit on, and ripped him apart, and intestines, because they had like little props, and pulled his body apart. And the audience was like, whoa. And that was Lord Nrsimhadev. And it produced an ecstasy. A big surprise, but, in a drama enacted with properly depicted emotions performed by artists who have immersed their thought in Sri Krishna. So that's an experience of rasa. Obviously it was a very powerful experience because it's so many years later. I'm remembering that experience. It was intense. It was ecstatic. Or on a festival day or any particular day when the deities are dressed very, very nicely with nice ornaments and this and that and the other thing. Like many of you, maybe you're one, I'm one. From time to time, I get these photographs of Radharaman in Vrindavan. And the pujaris of Radharaman in Vrindavan, they dress him in different ways according to the festival. And they're really creative. It's really nice. I mean, Anyway, it's really nice. And so one can easily examine the details and details, because the deity is quite small, but the details are exquisite. Like Balaram's appearance day, he's got a plow. Everything about Radharaman is Balaram, etc. So deity dressing or deity festivals, remembering Krishna, certain pastimes. Maybe you have your favorite pastimes of Krishna. And with the pastimes of Krishna, by remembering those pastimes of Krishna, there's a certain remembrance that stirs within your heart. I'll give two examples. One is personal, and another is Prahladananda Swami. Prahladananda Swami, there were a whole group of us that went to college the same place. Like here in Portland, three very prominent devotees went to school together at Reed College in Portland. Shyamasundar, Mukunda, and Jamuna. They all went to college together. So where I was, I made a list. There's 20 of us that came from the same place. It was really nice. Prahladananda Swami was one. And he was very much involved in meditation. So, not so much kirtan, that kind of expression, but meditation. And when he became a devotee, he engaged in devotion with meditation. So there's certain. He shared with me. To be honest, I can't remember which painting, but there was a certain painting that he felt he had a relationship with. A painting that he had a relationship with, because by meditating upon that painting while chanting, he felt something, and nearly every time, because it was a profound feeling, the feeling would come back again, and it was I forget the context. Also, when we discussed it, but I heard it several times from him, so it has a profound effect on the emotional level or the bhakti level of him in a painting. And I've had something similar in my experience, not the same, but similar. In Houston, they built a sannyas ashram. So there's 3 rooms, and I have the middle room. I get assigned that middle room, and on that room, in that room, there's a painting by Pushkar. And I'll describe the painting. Many of you will recall the painting just by my description. It's Krishna and Balaram sitting in the foreground, and they're sitting on a rock. And on the one side, there's a very, very, very large tree. The whole background is darkish colored. In the background, you see the cowherd boys playing. But in the foreground, it's Krishna Balaram. And, a kind of a darkish background depiction. It's in a forest. Clearly in a forest. So, there was a japa retreat here. So for I don't know, something like 13 years, we've had a japa retreat in Houston. And on some part of that japa retreat, in most mornings, I will sit right in front of the painting, and there's Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. So with the absorption of that sound vibration and the painting, it's not just a painting. Like Prabhupada said these paintings are picture windows into the spiritual world. One devotee recently asked, what about these artificial intelligence generated paintings? Are that also a picture window into the spiritual world? That's a nice question. And the answer is yes. Prabhupada, this is Murli Dar. Murli Dar, Prabhupada stories are always nice. Murli Dar asked Prabhupada, we, as the artists, we'd like to depict Krishna properly. Is there some way to distinguish how Krishna should look as artists, how we should depict him? And Krishna gave, Prabhupada gave a very simple, he has carrying a flute and a peacock feather in his hair and, threefold bending form, and that's Krishna. Sham, darkish color, complexion. So Murli Dar tried again and said, well, what about, then he showed him, a children's stick picture of Krishna. And Prabhupada said, there's his peacock feather, there's his flute, there's a threefold bending form. That's Krishna. And, Murli Dar didn't have much more to say. I mean, that's what Krishna looked like to that little boy. And that's what Krishna looks like. Can Krishna look like that? Why not? So if Krishna can look like that was the answer to this devotee. So the artificial intelligence generated images are also picture windows into the spiritual world. So this painting on the wall of the sannyas ashram is a picture window, and there's a palpable exchange between the sound and the mantra and the painting and the experience of Krishna. I don't know how to properly put it in words, but it's Krishna can reveal himself. It takes absorption, and it also, effort on our side and mercy on Krishna's side. But these are how Sthai Bhava can transition to Bhakti Rasa. Then the devotee experiences an inexplicable, deeply spiritual, intense and magical bliss of bhakti towards Krishna in his heart, within his heart. This deepening, unique, spiritual, blissful experience of the Sthai Bhava within the heart of a devotee, that's Bhakti Rasa. So, from Scripture, here are these four, and actually it's now become five. So, Udipana and Alambana is divided into two. So, Vibhavas, two, and then each of the others. So let's take Sattvika Bhavas. You can see the chart. The letters are big enough? You can read. Oh, good. So, in Krishna book, or in the 10th canto Bhagavatam, chapter 9, Krishna started to cry when Mother Yasoda was showing him the stick, so she threw away the stick. And then she began perspiring, trying to bind Krishna, but she couldn't bind Krishna. So those descriptions are her bodily transformations, involuntary bodily transformations that are taking place in relation to Krishna. And if one, as the hearer of these, hears with attention and absorption, then that not only it's Mother Yasoda's experience, but it can be the reader's or the hearer's experience. So without going through all what's on this chart, it's a nice chart. On the right side, there's Mother Yasoda trying to bind Krishna. So very, very succinctly, Bhakti Rasa. Fear personified is fearful of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and that same Krishna is afraid of a simple village woman. Such is the amazing quality of bhakti that Sri Krishna comes under the complete control of his pure devotee. That's Bhakti Rasa. It's further extension of the principle within Krishna's pastimes. So we're reading Krishna's pastimes in Krishna book or in the 10th canto. And there's potency in that subject matter to stimulate and awaken emotion or bhakti rasa. And we're going to end quickly. This is tomorrow. We're going to just take the dasya bhakti rasa, specific to the relationship between Ramachandra and Hanuman, as the example that's given again and again and again about of the different rasas that Hanuman represents or manifests dasya rasa, superlative way. I think it'd be nice to circulate this chart so you can all take a closer look at it. And it's just examples. Don't take a picture. I'll circulate the chart. Because you do that and then everyone's going to get their camera up and it's distracting. So there's the Sthayi Bhava. Sthayi Bhava is Mother Yashoda. She has this Sthayi Bhava of parental affection. And then there's the voluntary, involuntary, etc., etc., etc. Embellishments of that primary Sthayi Bhava. So that Sthayi Bhava is not yet rasa, but it can becomes bhakti rasa, resting upon their steady ecstasy or Sthayi Bhavas. Now, one more time. Why are we doing all this? And it's the purpose. But back to that example of a concert. Probably most of us. I don't know if any of you have attended anything that looks like this. An orchestra. Certainly, I did in as a young person growing up in America. It was not uncommon to see an orchestra. So maybe with some traditional Indian instruments and performers of classic dance on stage with classic music, and but they're different sound vibrations depending upon the instrument and the performer of the instrument, and so it produces a different effect. And the more refined is your understanding of the elements that go into an orchestra. A conductor may stop all the instruments and then just have a solo oboe. Boom, 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 and then go back to the whole everybody, and it gives an experience to even an inexperienced person. What to speak of a connoisseur? And then there's a rasa that's experienced by that person, in part enhanced experience by understanding the embellishments that make up a musical score. That's why. So that as we go forward in time, and we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam or reading writings of the Goswamis or something, that we experience bhakti rasa more completely, more comprehensively, just by that connoisseur-like understanding, like Prabhupada tasting one grain of rice. I don't have such refined taste, but Prabhupada did. Okay, that's our topic for this evening. Introduction to Bhakti Rasa. We started at 5 o'clock. It's now 6:30. Let's see if there's some discussion. I'll put you on notice. Yes. But I'll put you on notice. Tomorrow morning, 3:30 a.m. Pacific time, I have a Zoom call with Chinese devotees. So I need to take rest early, get up early, chant early, and be on a Zoom call early. I'm not complaining or anything. That's a life of sannyasi. We do what's required of us. But just so that you know, if I do the 23 skidoo when we're done, it's because I'm running off to the morning class tomorrow. Okay. Go ahead, you can speak. We can hear you.
The one which is more perplexing for me is the Vyabhichari Bhav, because you introduced the Bhakti Rasa as something that the devotee experiences and it gives them pleasure because of
Yes.
in relation to the Lord. But
But
some of the examples that you gave in the Vyabhichari Bhav, like fear, sickness, that doesn't, I'm not able to comprehend how
Okay.
those feelings can give.
piece of cake. The piece of cake means in the spiritual realm. The spiritual realm is a realm of Vaikuntha, means no anxiety. So the description that you're being perplexed by is not the material emotion. If it was material emotion, it would bounce, or it would be perplexing. But on the spiritual plane, those emotions are ecstatic. They're bhavas, they're ecstasies. Let's take, for example, Krishna is taken from Vrindavan. The gopis go mad. They faint. They fall on the ground. They start, they do what gopis do when they're separated from Krishna. Looks terrible. It's ecstasy. Or take another, for example. In Ramayana, Ramachandra is banished for 14 years. And when that news goes to this person, that person, the other person, read Ramayana, translations of Ramayana. I don't know what it says in Sanskrit, but the English translation that I'm accustomed to, it's sorrow. And sorrow, and Dasarath dies of sorrow. And etc. But it's ecstasy. In fact, according to Rupa Goswami, each of the secondary rasas, because there's primary rasa is not sthai bhava, primary rasa is primary rasa. The primary, situation that one may be engaged in a relationship with Krishna. So, each of those secondary rasas, 7 in number and then mixtures of the 7, they have a presiding deity. And the presiding deity for sorrow is Ramachandra. It's an ecstasy, and he is in charge of it, or the presiding deity of. It's ecstasy. Doesn't look like ecstasy. Looks like real sadness. And name the names of persons who feel sadness, Bharata, and etc., etc., etc. When he hears what his mother did so that he can become king and send Ramchandra to the forest, he wants to smash her as his mother. So there's the presiding deity of. It looks really bad, and it's an ecstasy. So it's a different lens to look at spiritual relationship with the Supreme Person. And it has secondary rasas, along with primary rasas. And they're spiritual. They're not only spiritual, they're ecstatic. They're ecstatic. To you and me, in reading about it, doesn't look like at all like, Krishna's taken from Vrindavan and they go mad. That's not ecstatic. They curse Akrura. They cursed Lord Brahma for eyes that, it's an expression of ecstasy. They're feeling ecstasy within, in different moods.
Thank you, Maharaj.
It's a little bit like going beyond the bodily conception, because in the bodily conception, it's like not nice. And the beyond bodily conception, it's not just beyond not nice, it's ecstatic. We have to flip our conception to the spiritual side. And pastimes of Krishna are ecstatic. Pastimes of Ramachandra are ecstatic. And those that are intimately experiencing those pastimes, it's ecstatic. And authorities, there's many nice things to say, but one of them is Lord Brahma, most learned person, at the end of that whole experience of the cowherd boys entering the mouth of Aghasura demon, and he saw it all happen because he was up in his swan carrier observing the whole thing. And then Krishna killed Aghasura. Anyway, he's amazed. And at the end of his prayers, he indicates very explicitly, these cowherd boys are more elevated than us. They're little boys. And we're demigods. We're controllers of the universe. And they're more elevated than us. And here's why. They can participate in Krishna's pastimes. We can observe from a distance. We can't experience like they're experiencing. Directly participating and directly experiencing. So what their direct experience, they die. At least apparently. Entering into Aghasura and entering into the Kaliya lake, and Krishna glances upon them and they come back to life and they look at each other and say, what happened? We died. Here we are. They're experiencing these things. They're very fortunate, but there's not a material experience. It's an otherworldly experience. And what's an otherworldly experience like? Bhakti Rasa. Love in relation to Krishna. It's easy, it's too easy to hear and think in material terms. Krishna's dancing on the hoods of the Kaliya serpent. He has 1,000 hoods. And he's dancing on all his 1,000 hoods. And the 1,000 hoods are trying to bite him. So, come on. Come on. Fiction, right? But he's purifying. Anyway, that's the transcendentalness of these pastimes of Krishna that are meant to stimulate bhakti rasa, not like perplexity. Astonishment, yes, but not sadness or the material emotion of fear or dread or sorrow or something. Over here.
I just have one follow.
More. Okay.
So in Bhagavad Gita, the beginning, Arjun, he experiences the feeling of, extreme level of anxiety that he's going to fight with the.
Yeah.
So all of that is in the platform of Rasa. Is that how we should understand?
Interesting question. What do you think?
From this explanation, it looks like those are Vyabhichari Bhavas.
Nice way to look at it. On the one hand and on the other hand. On the one, so he, Arjun, was induced to experience what he experienced. Meaning, he's a pure devotee. And he doesn't have lamentation and fear and dread. So is that an ecstatic emotion? Or is for the purpose of narrating Bhagavad Gita, as Arjun put into a position like we're in, where he's apparently bewildered, and he has forgotten who Krishna really is. So one can argue either way. And then the binary processor mind will say, well, if it's this, then it can't be that. And if it's that, it can't be this. So which is it? It's got to be a this or that, a 1 or a 0. So which is it? And, sitting here right now, our acharyas have probably commented, but I've had experience of having acharyas comment on the same thing in 2 different ways. To me, it seems like it could be induced by Yogamaya for Arjun to be in that position. Therefore, he's under the influence of Yogamaya, and therefore it's ecstasy. Or he's acting as if one of us, and thus, covered by Maya, Mahamaya, not just Yogamaya, for the arrangement of the Leela of Krishna narrating Bhagavad Gita.
It's very complex, but
yeah. And the bottom line, in one sense, it doesn't really matter whether he was in Mahamaya or Yogamaya, acting that way because Krishna induced him to act that way. That's it. It's an ecstasy of Arjuna. Either way, it's fine. My personal inclination is it's induced by Krishna. It's an ecstasy. It's like what you're saying. You don't understand it now. If one way to understand it is, it's the internal potency acting upon Arjuna, and he's in ecstasy, feeling bewildered. A great warrior with his dropping his bow, and I shall not fight, and nice. It's Leela. Okay, over here.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, Dandavad Pranam. So I have a question about the slide that you have.
This one?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm glad it's up. So I was thinking, like the Alambana Vibhavas, you mentioned it's the involvement of personalities like Sri Krishna and devotees. And in Uddipana Maharaj, you mentioned animals, like are animals like cows, calves? I mean, Krishna has a loving relationship with animals too.
Why not?
But are they not like devotee, or like I didn't understand if you can explain.
Oh, okay. You want to include the cows, calves, and birds as devotees. That's nice.
Is it not?
Yeah, they're devotees. Yeah, they're devotees. You can include them, and that's another lens or another way of analyzing what their position is. They're dear to Krishna. But the distinction you could say, a human devotee, because that's normally how language like this is used. So Krishna has, devotees, and certainly the cows and the calves, and the river Jamuna and the trees and you name it. They're also devotees.
So what you meant, like referring to devotees, like
human. Yeah. That's a practical way to depict. Anyone else?
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Noon class that you covered from Bhakti Sandarbha, you used two terms, Swarupananda and Swarupa Shakti Ananda, with regards to how the Lord experiences happiness within himself. I wanted to just know if there are any examples to illustrate or to drive these 2 points home.
Well, the examples are right. I can pull up the slide, but the examples are right there on the slide. Krishna, so in principle, Krishna is content within himself. Atmarama, another term. It's very similar to the first of the two terms. He's content within himself. He doesn't need something outside of himself for contentment. And the second example is he, Krishna, Bhagavan, expands a portion of his ecstatic potency and invests a portion of that ecstatic potency in the jiva. And the name that's given is Bhakti. As in the expansion of Radharani is Bhakti Devi. And Bhakti Devi invests Bhakti in jivas, certain jivas. And they're very fortunate jivas to receive that. So that's the those are the examples. A jiva that's carrying Bhakti. And Krishna himself, who's the source, and is full in himself by his own Swarup Shakti, by the name or a division of which is Ladini Shakti. Those are the examples right on that slide. Does that help? Okay. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So in the analogy of dahi to raita and these embellishments,
Yeah.
do these four have, these are necessary conditions or either of them could...
Combinations.
Combinations.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're not all necessary ingredients.
Got it. A second follow-up is like, I see that out of the four, Vibhav is totally separate in terms of definition rather than three. Other three are
Say it slower.
Okay. Out of the four broader categories of embellishments,
Yeah.
Vibhav, the way it is described, looks different than the other three in the sense that the other three are like voluntary actions or transformations which happen.
Yes.
And these are, for some reason, interesting.
These are more fundamental.
And they're listed as causes. I'm reading the slide. And
Okay.
it just struck out to me. Is it...
I'm going to defer this question to Parma Karuna because he studied this topic super thoroughly. Would you like to respond to his question? He's a little shy to do so, but he'll twist his arm and he'll do so. You think you better hit that little button on the side of your...
I'll share my potentially imperfect understanding.
Okay.
But yes, these are the causes and the other three are the effects. But the whole exchange of rasa starts with the cause. And when the personalities and the situation, the setup, so to say, appears, and then the exchange begins, and then it gets more and more sweeter when then there are those actions, the responses of the personalities involved as shown here in Alamban Vibhav. So they are the effects in those personalities and the situation. All of that, when you mix it, rasa comes out.
Okay.
So these are causes, the remaining three are effects. Yes.
Well done. Would you like to comment on this? Oh, can't find it. The situation with personalities. This question came up. Yeah. Where is that slide? Huh? Okay. I'll find it. You respond. Would you like to respond to that?
Sure, I'll try, Maharaj. So yes, I mean, rasa is an exchange between two personalities, and usually the personalities are Sri Krishna and the devotee, and everything else is a situation or the rest of the setup. So if that other personality is a person, then that person is the part of the Alamban Vibhav. Again, what is not shown here is there are subcategories of Alamban Vibhava, Vishaya and Ashraya. So anyway, those are the two so to say endpoints of the exchange of rasa, and everything, the rest of the setup is the Uddipana Vibhavas. So animals are part of that, then they become Uddipana Vibhava. But one example comes to my mind, for example, the Brahmar Geet, the song of the bee, and it's a very, very deeply emotional exchange between Srimati Radharani and a bee, but she is sort of treating him or that bee to be Krishna, but it's an animal, and there's a beautiful exchange. In that case, the bee would become Alamban Vibhav for sure. The rest of the setup and everything, whatever is there. So it depends on where you put an animal. It's not fixed that animal has to be here or there. It's the two personalities between which exchange of rasa is occurring is Alamban Vibhav, and the rest of the setup that goes along with it is Uddipan Vibhavas. That's the setup. So again, it's part of the setup. And then the exchange that occurs once the setup is present are the rest of the three. Maybe there are other pastimes between Sri Krishna
No,
and animals,
but
like Kaliya.
mhm. Before we move on, you're raising another question. Okay, but before so a response that you're offering to this distinction between personalities involved in the emergence of rasa, Krishna and the devotee, down below is calves, birds, etc. They're also devotees. That's not there's no disagreement.
No.
Rather, the role that they're playing, as you're saying, the primary person who's on the receiving end, giving and receiving end, and then there's secondary persons that are they can become primary, like the bumblebee.
Yep.
And then so the context specific depends.
Yes.
Is that okay? Okay. Now, on this one?
I think Prabhupada mentions in Bhagavad Gita introduction that there can't be exchange of rasas between a human being and other living entities.
It can or cannot?
There cannot be. I was just looking for where it was written, but I remember reading that.
So what's that in relation to what the question, what's on you see on the screen, or the question that was raised over here?
Like if you put cows, calves, birds in the first category, then the exchange between those animals and the devotees won't take place.
So you're saying the same thing, but the exception and an exception is a bumblebee.
But they consider them as Krishna.
What?
But gopis consider bumblebee as
Not they, Radharani. She was treating the bumblebee like Krishna.
Yeah.
You're okay. So you're in agreement with all, there's no disagreement with what you're saying. You're just amplifying based upon this Bhagavad Gita introduction reference. Little Nectar Devotion class, 101. And then tomorrow evening is, 1 and 1.5. Or the application of this. So much of what is, not all, but a portion of what's going to be discussed tomorrow is Hanuman and one of the 4, Dasya. And one of the reasons for taking Hanuman is he's the whole month that we spent in Sundarakanda, and so much focus on Hanuman, So how to understand and appreciate the elements of what Hanuman does in relation to Ramachandra, and the rasa connected with Hanuman in connection with Ramachandra, and in a more refined and more complete way. Now, what's going to happen tomorrow, and even what's happened here, as we just heard, there's details and details that weren't mentioned, and because it would make your head spin. This is not intended to be a nectar devotion class. It's a introduction to Bhakti Rasa. What is it? And same with tomorrow, the Hanuman. You probably know some devotees that are ardent Ram Bhaktas, and they love Ramayana. They love Ramayana. And their lives are immersed in Ramayana as much as some of us, our lives are immersed in Krishna and Vrindavan. They love Ramayana. And they have an experience, a rasa of Ramayana that's very rich and filled with feeling. I'll just share this. Because of because of what we did in Sri Lanka, from that experience in Sri Lanka with Nityananda Pran and the musical performance and recitation of slokas, from that they received 4 or 5 different invitations to go to this place, that place, the other place, and perform. They have a certain. They change the topic slightly, but they're the music performers are the same, and so they're really enjoying what they're doing. They're really enjoying sharing with others what they're doing. It's like it's a loving exchange with them, between themselves and Lord Ramachandra and Hanuman. And it's rasa. It's very clearly. So that's a reason for choosing Hanuman. And I'm sure if you invite them to come here, they'll come here too. Have you already done so? You did? Okay. Did they say yes? Huh? They're booked. Next year. Or this year. Okay.
Reading the Jaiv Dharma part 3. That one, I will put a comment here, says, like Rajanath is asking Goswami, say, Gurudev, so far we have understood your expression on Vibhava Alambana. Kindly explain the stimuli known as Uddipana. Goswami is explaining objects and persons whose bhava are called Uddipana. Shri Krishna's quality, first, embellished, mild, bodily, food, ankle bells, conch, food impression, places of pastime, Devi, the Vaishnavas, Ekadashi days, so on, all are Uddipana.
Yeah. 33.
That's the 33 they have mentioned.
Okay. Okay. It's Bhaktivinoda Thakur and his capacity to explain and re-explain Rupa Goswami. Okay, well, and Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.